He hired me.
Hour and a half. All right.
If we need it. But the idea would be have time for Q&A. All right, we ready? Patrick, you ready? Hello and welcome. I am super excited to have all of you here today. We are so fortunate to be hosting our Business Leadership Board. They come to town twice a year, make certain that our path is true, that we're trying to create the best educational experience possible. And one way they do that is try to bring you information directly from the front lines of industry. And so all of these panels that we've been doing for the past 2 years around the question of, what can I do with my degree? Where can I go? I've studied business, now what? And so for those of you who may not be certain, or maybe you'll find something new, today's panel is all around the idea of what can I do in the area of flight operations. And with that, I will step away and hand the panel over to Dr. John Longshore, who will be facilitating and moving us forward.
Folks, it's a pleasure to have everyone here today. It's most of the pleasure is greeting the individuals on the panel. As I went through the bios, I've got to be honest with you. Not only am I impressed with our Business Leadership Council, but the amount of experience that we have here, the diversity that we have, and the different types of careers that they started is just fantastic. So I would like to do this a little bit informal, because I can get very formal for those who know me a little bit for doing that. However, that said, what I'd like to do is we've got a number of questions that we actually had students put the questions together for us to do this. And so Rick helped us put this, and he gave his blessing to it as we got off, as well as the dean for having it. But I will address the question to one individual on the panel to start the discussion. But then it's going to be sort of like a free-for-all, and I'm all in for free-for-all, you know that. Okay, so that being said, what I'd like to do, Lindsay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
5 by 5, good. Why don't we start with you, give them a little bit, who you are, what you do, which is quite impressive. And I'm going to be quiet, then we're going to move to Beatrice, then we'll move down to the individuals here physically on our panel for doing that, all right? Take it away.
Sounds good. Well, hi, everyone. Thanks for having me on the panel. My name is Lindsay Barfoot. I currently work at American Airlines here at our headquarters in Dallas. I graduated from Embry-Riddle Daytona in 2017 and then did my master's online through Worldwide and finished in 2019. But I've been with American for 6 years now. I'm currently working in network planning, which is the team that decides the schedules and where the airline flies to. So I've managed a whole range of markets, including Caribbean, Mexico, but currently plan the schedules for our Charlotte domestic hub.
All right, Beatrice.
Thank you. And hi, everyone. Thank you for the honor to be on your panel today. I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but hopefully I can come back in not too long. I graduated COB in 2012. I am an international student, so I came in from Sweden, and I didn't think I was going to work in aviation at all, believe it or not. But here I am about, 11 years later, and I've been in aviation ever since I graduated in 2012. I started with JSSI in Chicago, and I worked in kind of as an intern and then sales manager and alliance coordinator. And then from there, I got a job with Jet Aviation back in Europe. And I took care of all the clients in Scandinavia and in the UK. And I worked on the maintenance side. So we did maintenance sales for business jets. So everything ranging from Embraers, Falcons, Gulfstream, Bombardier. And then from there, I moved back to the US, got married and had 2 kids in between. And then in the US, I continue working for Jet Aviation, but on the West Coast. And I went over to aircraft management. And I don't know if all of you are aware, but with aircraft management, we basically could take care of the operations of the individuals, private jets, business jets. and making sure that they have the crew required, that they have the flight schedules in order, and just kind of managing everything that goes around owning and operating an aircraft. And then after 8 years with Jet Aviation, I got a job as of last year with Dassault Falcon, and I've been working with them ever since as a sales manager here on the West Coast. So it's been quite the ride, and I've been loving it. So lots of fun, the fun challenges on the way.
Thank you very much. Kelly, starting with you, sir.
I'm Kelly Eisen. I'm a captain with American Airlines for many years now, and I fly the Airbus aircraft, and I actually fly the schedules out of Charlotte that Lindsay and her team put together. I spent a lot of time in the industry, working up at the industry level with different pilot groups, in particular the American pilot groups. I do strategic planning for them, and basically manage the international alliance groups and partners that American Airlines has from the pilot perspective. Spent a lot of time negotiating pilot contracts on both sides of the table, on the management side and the union side, and representing various creditors in bankruptcies and reorganizations. And I've helped a few people there, a few countries, pilot groups, and airlines during the pandemic address their reorganization issues, but also their sustainability. And by sustainability, I'm not talking about environmental, but the way they conduct their operations, their safety management systems, their international treaty cooperation and compliances. So there's a lot to talk about in this area, and a lot of people to do it with.
All right.
My name is Justine Ruff. I graduated from Embry-Riddle in 1990. I worked for the Midland International Air and Spaceport in Midland, Texas. When I graduated in 1990, there were not a lot of jobs out in the aviation field. And I went to Midland. I thought I would be there 2 months, 6 tops, because it was not the location that I was looking to go to. But 32 years later, I'm still there. I'm the director now. I started as an airport operations agent, worked my way up all the way through the airport. I've done most of the jobs at the airport. And I'm finding that I'm quite the expert on small airport operations and management. So I know a lot of information about it, and I have a lot of experience to share.
I am Andy Priester. I am chairman and CEO of Priester Aviation, which is the largest family-owned corporate jet management and charter company in the world. We have about 85 airplanes, mostly domestically, but we do have one aircraft based over in Bangkok. And what I think I bring to the table is really some experience, some broad-based experience in a lot of different places in corporate aviation. Our company, I'm third generation. My grandfather started the company in 1945. In the history of the company, we've done everything from literally owning Chicago Executive Airport, which is now now it's Chicago Executive. Back then it wound up being Palwaukee, and we grew it from literally 100 acres of grass runways to what's now 3 paved runways. It was 5 when the family owned it. But we have kind of moved through a number of different things and evolved through general aviation and corporate aviation. We had owned the airport, we had owned the FBO, we had owned the 145 repair station. And in 2001, we sold 2 of the 3 pieces of the business to Signature Flight Support. And the only thing we've been focusing on is corporate jet management and corporate jet charter. In 2021, I bought the company from my father. He and I had the same goal for the company in terms of growth and expansion, but we had 2 very, very different thoughts in terms of how to get there. I have an appetite for acquisition. So over the last year, we've bought 2 additional companies. One is called Mayo Aviation, which is based in Denver. Another one that we just completed last month is Hill Aviation, which is actually in Atlanta. But at the end of the day, we all do the same thing. These are all family companies. We're going to keep the names because we believe family names, longevity, history, the relationships behind them, we believe it really means something. So it is a strategic decision to keep the names, but they all fall under Priester Aviation as an umbrella brand. We really do a lot of the same things that Beatrice said she did with Jet Aviation. Jet Aviation is a much bigger company. General Dynamics do the same thing that we do. We think our differentiator is the fact that we're a family company and we really focus on the family type relationships. So it's been a lot of fun. Really appreciate being here with all of you, and hope you have lots of questions by the time we're done so we can kind of hit you. And the other thing, the big reason I'm here from an industry perspective is our industry in general, meaning the corporate jet industry. We have done an awful job sharing with you as prospective employees everything that we wind up doing. And there's a lot of really, really cool stuff that happens in the corporate jet industry. And most of what students hear and see and believe, especially before you come here, is airlines and Boeing, and there's nothing wrong with those. They're great pathways, great companies. But I just want to make sure I share with you the different things that you might be able to find and experience and see in corporate aviation. Totally different flavor, but it's all still ice cream. So I just want to share that stuff with you, and hopefully some of you are interested in maybe talking a little bit more about corporate aviation.
Thanks, Andy. I really like the ice cream.
Yeah.
As a fellow ice cream guy, right? My name's Joe Hepburn, and I'm a recently retired Cessna exec, I guess. I did a whole bunch of different jobs for the company, including some time in airplane design, some time in marketing, a lot of time in product support. And along the way, I got to be involved in the flight operations at Textron Aviation. As a retired guy, I'm still doing that, right? I'm the chief flight instructor in our company-owned 141 flight school, which is a whole different story about creating pilots at Textron, and they believe that's a really good thing to do. But the really unique part about this part of the ice cream sundae is at Textron Aviation, Cessna Beechcraft, there are all kinds of pilot careers, right? We have our own corporate flight department, fly business jets. We develop new airplanes, so we have an experimental flight test group. We produce airplanes, so we have a production flight test team. And we have a host of training that happens because every new airplane, whether it's a single engine piston airplane like you enjoy here on your ramp, or a business jet, comes with training. So we have maybe a greater percentage of pilots that work at our company than typical, but we're an airplane company and we tend to be airplane fanatics.
This next stage that we go to is going to require us to choose a number between 1 and 6 so we can get started with the questions right now. Justine, I think you chose the correct number. Okay, so let's get started. Thank you very much. By the way, if you keep talking about ice cream, we have to take a break. You know that. We have to take a break to do that. Okay, Justine, would you describe to the group what a normal workday in your career consists of?
Okay.
Please.
In an entry-level airport operations job, which is where if you went into airports, you would probably start. The thing that I love about airports is that every day is different. I mean, I knew early on I was not a person to sit behind a desk all day and do one thing. I have to have variety. I have to be able to get up and move around. Airports allow that. You know, there's certain inspections that have to be done every shift. So you know you're going to get out and do those. And you can decide when you get to work, hey, I'm going to work on this project all day, and someone will fall on a jet bridge or a passenger will do something wrong more now than ever. And it changes the course of your day. But I like that. I like that I know when I go to work, it's not going to be the same thing every day. As I've moved through the process, as I've gone from operations agent supervisor into deputy director, director role, now it's meetings that I have. You know, it's more political and I have different meetings, but same thing happens. You know, I thought I was going to be here all day today. I had a crisis with legal this morning that I had to leave and deal with for a little bit. And since I've been up here, I got an email from the mayor because someone's complaining about noise from our flight school. So it's always something different every day, but that is what I thrive on and that is what I enjoy. If you're one of those people who can't multitask and has to have the same routine every day, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's something for everyone, but airports are probably not the thing for you.
Beatrice, I think we'll go with you now. We could please. Okay.
Yeah, of course. So being in sales, you never have a normal week. I can go from, being 1 week, I work from home, so I have a home office, and mostly I'm on the road. But if we go for next week or last week, as an example, Monday morning, I woke up, I took my kids to school, usually on an electric bike, came back, had my coffee and went through my emails. On Tuesday morning, after I dropped off my kids, I took a flight from San Diego Airport and I flew up to Vegas for a big conference. I was there for 3 days. So usually I travel 2 to 3 days per week or every other week, meet with clients, go to conferences, visits, meetings, and then I come back and I work from home. And when you work from home, it's usually phone calls, calling the clients, making sure everything is in order, trying to see what aircraft they want and what they want inside the aircraft. And yeah, it's a variety. You can go work out whenever you want to when you're working from home, which is very nice. And you can go and cut the grass outside if you need to. But then when you're on the road, you're 24/7 and you don't really sleep. So it's a big fun mix and some ice cream in between too.
Lindsay, your turn.
All right. So yeah, we are here in Dallas. We work 4 days in the office, just 1 day work from wherever. But most of our days, kind of like Justine said, every day is different, depending what's going on in the commercial aviation world. But we spend a lot of time looking and analyzing data. We're always working on our schedules in advance. So for example, right now we're currently working on the schedules for spring of 2024. So we're looking at data on how our flights performed last spring, current bookings and how bookings are coming in for that period. We are talking and looking at our constraints for that schedule period. So, how many pilots we have, how many flight attendants, what maintenance constraints look like, because those change with every schedule we build. So a lot of time, dealing with all those constraints, looking at data, and then actually working in our schedule software to build the flight schedule. I would say that's probably 50% of our time is that. And then the other 50% of the time is a lot of ad hoc projects. So we do kind of deep dives into performance on certain markets if things are standing out and not looking in line with expectations. We do go to several conferences. We talk with airports often. So it's a mix of a lot of analytical work, but also working kind of with outside partners as well.
Thank you, Lindsay. Joe, I'm going to go with the ice cream today.
So a typical day for somebody who works as a flight ops person at Textron Aviation would start off with, your responsibilities might cover 4 different aircraft models, right? So you would be current and or trained in 4 of our different airplanes. And depending on the either demo flight requirements, transportation requirements, air show opportunities, or delivery opportunities, would depend on what kind of a flight you were going to make and where you were going to go. So let's say that we were bringing an airplane to say Sun and Fun for the air show that's going to happen next spring. Those particular flight ops guys would be charged with number one, making sure that the airplane is ready for the flight from Wichita down to here. They've done their flight planning, they filed their flight plans. They've got a load of equipment and or other people that are supposed to come with them for that event. They would get down here, probably set that up, get the airplane positioned, secured, safetied, responsibility for whoever's going to watch over the airplane during the show, hand it off correctly, and then they might get on the airline and go back to Wichita the next day. So it's very much of a different destination every day in a different product, probably similar but different product. And sometimes it's for a flight show, sometimes it's for customer transportation or executive transportation inside the company.
Andy. So there's going to be some themes that I think will come out of some of the answers. You know, our industry, the corporate jet management and charter industry, we are here to provide flexibility. We are here to provide solutions for those people that contract with us to deliver the service. And what that means and the similarities that tie some of our conversations together here is today will not be the same as tomorrow. It just won't be. And just to give you, I'm not going to give you my day because quite frankly, that's boring. I work with the other leaders of the other departments to make sure we wind up achieving the company goals. You guys don't want to hear about that. You guys want to hear about, you know, the day-to-day of people that work within Priester Aviation, Mayo Aviation, Hill Aviation. So if I just take a look at last week, one of our clients is a Fortune 20 company. We manage their flight department for them, and they have their board meeting that's happening in India in about a week and a half. On the way to India, that airplane is going to several stops. It started down here in Florida where the chairman winds up having a house. It went from here to Italy. And then yesterday it went from Italy up to Brussels, and then from Brussels it goes someplace else. So the amount of planning that goes into a trip like that, it's pretty intense. You know, going all the way from setting up jet beds in the back of the airplane because they want to be comfortable to making sure the maintenance is right. And last week when we got down here in Florida, one of the IRSs went out. So now there's this massive scramble trying to figure out how you wind up getting that particular part down to Florida to install into the airplane before they wind up leaving on a major international trip. So we don't inconvenience the chairman of the company or other board members that might wind up being on the airplane. It sucks. But it's great when you actually achieve those goals because that's what they expect out of us. So the day-to-day can be different based on what happens on a particular flight leg. But when you have teams of people that you're surrounded by and you build these relationships and you come out on top, more times than not, the level of satisfaction is pretty remarkable. On the charter side, it is equally as dynamic, if not more dynamic. So every day we're getting requests to do different things, and based on the things that we've all seen in the news over the last week, which are unfortunate, you know, we are getting a number of calls because people have family members over in the Middle East and in Israel. They want to get them out and they're looking to us for solutions. Can we get over to Israel to bring their family members out? And the answer is no, by the way. But as soon as we receive those calls, we've got teams of people talking to the State Department, checking on international operations, seeing if we can actually get someplace close. Maybe even we were exploring to go to Amman because we couldn't wind up getting into Tel Aviv or Jerusalem or whatever the case is. So it is an all hands on deck full team response to how can we accomplish that mission for whoever it is that's in the back of the airplane, whether they're a corporate aviation, you know, charter user or an aircraft owner. That's what they hold us responsible. And then every step along the way, you've got these communication protocols set up. So you're letting people know, and the people that are connected to the team in the back of the airplane know what's going on, if there's any problems. You know, there's emails going back and forth on the trip over to Italy because, you know, they wound up having a power bus go out on the airplane. So the mechanic who rode on the airplane was on the phone with our maintenance control team going through reset procedures to make sure we get all the equipment back up. So, I mean, it is the world's most complicated but fun moving puzzle. And that's what the team winds up doing every day. From your perspective, when I say team, it really is a team. It's maintenance, it's owner services, it's scheduling, it's logistics, it's leadership, it's everybody that works together to deliver that service to really achieve the goals of the people that are in the back of the airplane. So super, super fun, super, super complicated, super exciting. And as several people said, it's not the same every day. That I can wind up promising you. And what's going to happen tomorrow can be vastly different than what happened today or what happened yesterday.
Thank you.
And every day for me is just exactly the same. And there's nothing true that I just told you. My day typically starts the day before because I have to plan to arrive at the airport to check in an hour before my trip starts. And just getting to the airport nowadays can be a real challenge. But I have to arrive well rested and fit for duty. One of the first things I have to do is sign a form electronically, of course, that says I am fit for duty for this flight. And so I have to make sure that's true when I get to the airport. And as I said, that in itself is a challenge. Once we get to the airport, find out what the maintenance status is on the airplane, if there are any systems that aren't working perfectly that bring additional special procedures, go through that. An hour before the flight, the flight plan and load plan draft is done, and get that on the iPad, go through all that, make sure I'm comfortable with everything I see there and that I agree to go under those circumstances. Make it to the airplane. I'll meet the first officer the first time, probably somebody I've never met before in my life. And we're going to sit down in that airplane with an incredibly complex set of procedures and perform them flawlessly every time the same way. So we'll start with our introductions, briefing. I tell the first officer, here's the way I work, and ideally, and usually is the same way first officer works. This is my expectations. If you see something that looks like I'm doing in a questionable manner, question it. And we want to make sure that we get the tone set for the flight and for the subsequent flights after that we're going to be together. Then it's time to meet the flight attendants. Get them all together. And this is before the passengers get on board, and say, okay, here's what this flight looks like. Here's what you can expect. Here's where the rides are. It's going to take this long. Here are the issues we have. If there have been some security notifications or anything like that. But if we meet something out of the ordinary, here's how I want you to handle it. And here's when I want you to handle it. And there are 4 or 5 of those flight attendants in the back. So to make sure they're coordinated before they start talking to us. And then speak to the gate agent, find out what sort of number of passengers we have on board. We see if they have any special passengers that need some sort of security clearance or other special treatment. And find out if there are standby passengers waiting to get on. So I want to make sure they get on as well if there's a seat open. So, and then we start with the operation of the airplane, which is, let's assume it's the same, nothing out of the ordinary. It goes exactly like planned every day, the way we briefed it and according to our checklists. So, and then we'll eventually get to the layover hotel, figure out how we're going to get there, any problems with the transportation to the hotel. And then start looking at the next day. How much sleep do I need? When do we need to leave? So I'll again arrive at the airplane fit for duty. So that's a day for me. And so far, I've always been fit for duty.
So Kelly, let me see if I get this correct. You're using iPads now, you're not using the knee pads?
Correct.
I think there's only a few out there that understands what I'm talking about, right?
But
Okay.
but I don't want to suggest that I don't use scraps of paper.
Okay,
Because I
you're
do.
still using those. Okay, what I'd like to do now is I want to pose a question. I'm just going to toss it up in the air. And the person to respond to it will go around the room. But the question is, what is your best advice you could give to a graduating student based on your own experience now? Okay. Lindsay, you're on.
I think for me, it's just, come into whatever your first job is and be open to learning, be really curious. I think back on my first job and it wasn't exactly where I wanted to be in my career, but took it as an opportunity to learn as much as I can, while I was in the position that I was in. And I think, when we have new people joining our teams here, at American, we really look forward to having people who ask tons of questions and who just want to learn and are passionate about what they're doing. So my advice would be just be open, especially early in your career, to learning new things, even if it's not exactly what you want to be doing long term.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. Beatrice.
Yeah, I agree with Lindsay. It's so easy to come in and have really high expectations and be very excited for coming out of college and thinking now it's time to make some good money. But I think that first job is really important just to get the introduction. Like without my first internship after Embry-Riddle, I would have never been where I am today. That job basically took me, and I think I was paid $8 an hour or something for doing that internship. But that introduced me to the whole industry that I didn't even know existed. I didn't really know what business aviation was, so that it was, a whole industry around all these private jets flying around and all the great opportunities that were around that. So just to be open and kind of, be happy where you are and do the best out of it, and then just appreciate that you have a foot into a cool industry. I think that's my best advice, and just kind of be curious, ask questions, and really respect the experience from the people that you're working with. Everyone that you like, the company that you're coming into are going to be very excited to hear from you what you can give to the industry and what you recently learned, but also ask questions, because everyone that's working for a very long time, that experience means a lot and they can teach you a lot if you ask those questions. So respect their experience, respect the people that's been there for a long time, and just kind of let them guide you, but ask them questions of how.
Thank you, Beatrice. So Justine?
My thoughts are that if you get into a job and you don't love the job, there's got to be something about the job that you like, and concentrate on that and build from that. And don't take another job with the same job title because you think it's going to be a lot different than the job you're doing now. If you start at a small airport, you're going to learn everything about airports. So there's going to be some things you like, some things you don't. There are people who like to deal with the public and the landside operations. There are people who do not like to deal with the public, but they like to deal with the airside operations, the runway inspections, things like that. When you move on to a bigger airport, if you don't like airside operations, don't take a job that only does that. Make sure that you decide for yourself what you like, and then for your next step, do it in the path of things that you like to do, because you're going to end up in a bad situation and changing careers if you keep taking jobs just because they're more money or at a different place, but it's not a better job or a better fit for you.
Okay. Andy.
I'm going to say the same thing two different ways. First, success is not by accident. If you guys are successful, when you guys are successful, it's not by accident. That's part A. Part B is recognize that you're responsible for your own success. Nobody else is. So I promise you, there's two things that are going to happen at some point in your career. You're going to work with somebody you don't like. You're going to have a boss that you think is a jerk. You're going to have a situation that doesn't go your way. And the sooner you recognize that your ability to take that situation, manage your way through it, and turn it into success, the more long-term success you will wind up having. That's just reality. Unfortunately, we've seen it. I'm not going to say often or not often, but you wind up hearing things like, well, my boss doesn't like me, or somebody on my shift didn't do this. All of that might wind up being true, but as soon as you wind up saying those things, you are outsourcing your own success to somebody else. And you're the only one that winds up controlling that. So be proactive, engage in that situation, try and make it better, learn from your boss if they don't like you. If you're not performing the way that they want, maybe you guys disagree, but through honest, open communication, you have the ability to learn and chart a pathway so you wind up being in a better situation overall, because you guys are the only people that can wind up doing that for yourself.
Thank you. Kelly?
My guess is the fact that you're here means that you already know something that you're passionate about and that you know the direction you want to go. So follow that direction, follow that passion, and go the direction to where it is you think you want to be. And the steps you take to get there are not going to get you there. I promise you that. Go ahead and accept that now. But every step you take will get you a step closer. And it may be that you don't even get to where you think you're going, but you get to a better place that's more aligned with your passion, because you don't know what's out there until you get out there and do it. And you're going to wind up in the job you don't like, or maybe you think you don't like. But it's a mind state for me. I always had to convince myself it's a mind state. I decided that I was going to embrace it. And maybe I decided that I was going to like it, even if it's a difficult job. And the best way to get out of a situation you don't like is to be very good at that job. And you will get advancement opportunities to go to a better step that's more fitting for where you want to go. And again, my mindset is always, whatever happens outside is happening for me, not to me. And there's quite a big difference between those two things. And have some fun. It's there, might as well have it.
Thank you, Kelly. Joe?
Mine will be short and sweet. You've heard lots of really good, wise, sage advice on what to do with that first job. And I'll say the first job is never the one that you really want. Often it's not at the level that commands a lot of respect. But I'll tell you, the fastest way out of that first position is to do that job like it is your sole passion, to do it really, really well. So do that work and do it expertly, because that will get you noticed and moved to a better position quicker than anything else.
Thank you very much. Time for ice cream.
Absolutely.
By the way, is this okay? Is everything coming okay? Okay, let's ask one now that I think you're all wanting to know. What is this is a toss-up again, okay? What is the most important thing a person can learn from their degree that they will use in the workforce? Okay. And Justine, let's start with
I
you.
have to go first again? Okay, let me think about this. The most important thing that you learn for your degree. So not your work ethic, not your.
Yep.
The most important thing you learn
From your degree
from your degree
that they will use in the workforce.
that you will use in the workforce. Okay, well, remember you come from Embry-Riddle, and that is an industry gold standard, and you can use that. You know, I mean, there's very few aviation businesses you can go into that have not heard of Embry-Riddle, and if they haven't, then you kind of wonder where they've been. So you know, when in doubt, if you need something to open a door for you, use a degree from Embry-Riddle.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Lindsay, you're on.
All right. For me, I think it's the ability to think critically, not, specific skill. If it's economics, accounting, I think really it just boils down to, can you think critically when you're presented with a problem? Can you reason your way through it? We really believe here that you can teach people specific jobs, but coming out of college, I think if you can reason your way through things, explain your logic, explain how you got to an answer, that is probably one of the most important skills that you can have coming into your first job.
Beatrice?
Yeah, I think, I think I've used all my classes, communication skills, microeconomics, finance, marketing. You never know really where you're going to end up. So just try to focus in each and every class. I didn't think I was going to work in aviation, so I didn't focus that much on my aviation classes. Looking back, I wish I focused way more. So I think, since you never know where you're going to end up, just try to be curious throughout all the classes and take them with you, because you're going to use it. And I'm amazed by all the professors that are Embry-Riddle, and they have a lot of experience and they've been working in many different industries. So, take advantage of your expertise that you have around you and just ask questions and be curious, because I think that's going to help you in the long run.
Thank you very much. Okay, Andy, I think we're here with you.
Perfect. So I'm going to take a little bit of a left turn. Part of my personal history getting into aviation, obviously we're in a family business, but when I got out of college, I was actually an 8th grade teacher for 5 years. Loved every minute of it. Where I'm going with this is I think I got my best business education being an 8th grade teacher, because when I was a teacher for 5 years, I taught 120 different 8th grade students every year. What that taught me, and what I learned with doing that, was the ability to recognize different personalities, the ability to treat people differently to accomplish a goal. So where I'm going with this is, as you are going through your classes now, or you have been, or you will be, and you are doing projects and you have assignments that you're working in teams, you guys are developing the skills just by experience, and you're learning how to work with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different personalities to achieve a goal. And that's important to recognize, because you might want somebody to behave a certain way. That's how you would love for it to go. But in reality, it's probably not going to. So if you are going to be a leader, or you're going to be working in teams as you get out into the workforce, the skills you obtain here, learning to work in teams, can translate, and recognizing that you're going to be managing, you're all going to be managing one another's personalities to achieve a goal, is a critical part of success out there in the workforce.
Thank you. What we're on this end.
Again, lots of wise advice, right? The one thing I want to say is don't be disheartened if the answer is I'm not using my degree, right? It's okay to find something that is interesting or looks like it's going to project you in a direction that you want to go, even if it's not aligned with your degree, right? When it comes right down to it, It's how to influence friends and win enemies, or win friends and influence enemies, right? Or defeat them, or whatever the answer is. You're learning a lot about how to work together and how to be competitive right now. And you want to sharpen those skills so that they'll pay off in the long run. Don't be afraid to do something that doesn't have your degree in the title.
Okay, and Kelly. I'll end it with you.
It will be an advantage to you all through your career if you understand the business that you're in, how that company works, and how the industry works that company's in. And you'll find a lot of people that work in companies that don't really understand that at all. Part of that is business courses. Part of that's finance. I'm not suggesting you have to be a financial analyst, but you have to understand basic financial terms, because finance is the language of business after all. And you should be able to speak to that somewhat. But the biggest part that it'll do for you is you'll hear people referring to financial terms or financial performance or issues. And if you can figure out what that means to you and your job, you're going to be farther ahead than most other people. And if you can then figure out how to fit whatever's going on better into those metrics, those measurements, you're going to be quite valuable to any company at that point.
Thank you, Kelly. Okay, folks, we have a good one for them now.
Bad ones are out of the way.
This is it. What this is up for grabs. What was your game plan to get where you are now? I'm thinking, if I've heard a lot, I think I know what your game plan is, but that's they need. And the next one is what went well with that game plan or from the game plan, and what did you have to change? Okay. Ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll
Kelly,
take it.
we ended with you and we're going to start with you.
There's one problem with the question is it assumes one game plan. I've had many game plans in this very same career. And the airline industry, which I've been in for so many years, changes every few years. And sometimes it changes dramatically overnight. So I've had to develop new game plans based on the new reality. So I think my game plan, as I look back on it now instead of forward, my game plan was the ability to shift game plans into whatever I needed to get where I want to go. So I don't know how you do that other than what we've been talking about, remaining flexible and just keep in mind following where we want to go. But the one game plan is probably not going to get you all the way there.
Okay, Beatrice, you're on.
I was just trying to think about my different game plans, but yeah, I agree with that. I think, there are so many things happening and all over the world that also changes our industries, and that changes your goal. So I think, one, it's important to have a goal, and then I think just trying to stay focused of knowing where you want to be, but also realizing that it might not be like that when you finally get there. So be open to new ideas on the way. I mean, I moved to Europe a bit earlier than I expected due to an opportunity that came from jet aviation, and I just didn't want to miss it. So I took it, and maybe I would have wanted to stay. I had just bought an apartment in Chicago, so it was not the best time to go. And we had just renovated it and spent a lot of time on that. And then, that opportunity popped up, and it was for Scandinavia. I was from Sweden. I could go home and see family. So it was a perfect opportunity. I took it, I left. I think if I would have done that again, I would have stayed instead of moving home and working from home with a brand new company and a brand new industry. I wish I would have stayed at the headquarters first. I think it's a huge advantage to be at the headquarters of a company where you haven't been before and spend some time there. You learn a lot from just meeting the people and the colleagues, and everything. I was kind of isolated up in Scandinavia trying to support the Swiss company. So that's one advice. And then when I moved back to the US, we had, I ran into some immigration issues and thinking we should have a visa in 2 months, and it ended up taking 14 months. In between, I got pregnant, and then you had to kind of adjust for having a kid. When should I move? Ended up moving when the kid was 2 months old. And then I finally got over to the US, and then COVID happened. So all those goals that you have and where you're kind of thinking that you will be and where you're gonna do, it could change very quickly. And everything ended up very good. So I'm happy about it, but it was quite the changes. And just going across the Atlantic with 2 kids, one of them just being a newborn was also a challenge, but it was pretty nice to be in San Diego when the pandemic hit. So I can't complain too much.
Thank you. Okay, Andy.
Well, ironically enough, and this kind of goes along with, I think, what Kelly was saying, my game plan was to be an 8th grade science teacher for the rest of my life, which I got out of college. That's what I did. Loved every minute of it. Also loved aviation, being a family business. It was a topic of conversation at Christmas dinner when we got together, different things along those lines. So I had the opportunity to take a sabbatical, go back into aviation, and as they say, the rest was history. So, if we advance that a little bit, and within our organization, my game plan was to try and grow the company. And interestingly enough, say that 5 times fast, how my dad wanted to grow the company and how I wanted to grow the company were 2 very, very different things. My dad is old school. He's still with us in his mid-80s now. And he would be like, let's grow here in Chicago. That's where our company has been based. And I'm like, but why not other places in the world? So it was really interesting. My game plan then became, okay, how do I take some of my ideas and work with my father to find a blended way to drive the company forward, which is what I focused on. I didn't focus on aircraft operation. I focused on growth opportunities, sharing those ideas with my father, having him recognize the value of what I had said. And then the truth is, towards the end of his retirement, when I bought him out, there were a lot of things we didn't see eye to eye on. Doesn't make him a bad guy, doesn't make it a bad situation, but he really recognized that it was time for him to step out of the way. And today's business environment is much different than what it was in the past. And I think I shared during my introduction, I have an appetite for acquisitions of the right strategic companies. For the first time, I was able to execute on my game plan for growing the company. And so far, so good. We're doing some pretty exciting things. But that was kind of the transition between his game plan, a blended game plan between him and I, and now a full game plan on my side going forward. But in terms of where it started, science teacher. So don't be afraid to take a left turn if that winds up making sense for you.
Okay. Lindsay, you're on.
All right. Yeah. So I was, a student at Embry-Riddle. When I was a student there, thought, I want to be at Boeing. I want to be at, the big manufacturers. And I got the opportunity when I was a student to do an internship at the airport in Seattle, which is where I'm from. And so, it wasn't exactly what I was thinking I wanted to do, but I went there and I had a lot of fun. And I realized, there's a lot more to the industry than just working at Boeing. And so then the next summer did an internship at an airline, and I really fell in love with the airlines and what I was doing there. And so my original game plan was, go to Embry-Riddle, get a degree there, go work for Boeing. And it quickly changed to, I need to get into the airlines because that's where I found my passion. And then even once I got to American, I shared earlier that I didn't start in the exact job that I wanted. When I was, a senior at Embry-Riddle, I realized that I wanted to do network planning and I wanted to decide new routes and build schedules for the airlines. But that wasn't an opportunity that was available when I had graduated. And so I accepted, the first opportunity that I got at a major airline, which was working in revenue management. Did that for a couple years, learned a lot about how the airline makes money, how competitive the industry is, about different competitors as well. And then from there had the opportunity to go and work in charters for American Airlines, which was a team that, plans all the flights for the NFL teams and the veterans groups that we fly. And so that was totally not on my radar at all when I was back in college at Embry-Riddle. I wanted to be, working at Boeing. But here I was planning charter flights for the Philadelphia Eagles. So very different than what I had, my game plan was originally. And then from there, I was able to get into network planning and finally get to the job that, was my initial goal once I got into the airlines. So that's why some of my advice was just take the opportunities, learn as much as you can, because I found that's really helped me so far in my career.
Thank you, Lindsay. Joe, again.
Okay, I'll wrap this up. I'm going to take a slightly different twist on this and just say, examine carefully what your game plan and what's most important to you. Right now, while you're in school, as you enter a career, that career seems like it is the thing that's going to identify you. In the long run, no matter where you get to in your career, whether it's CEO or the chief pilot or the whatever it is, that career will fall short of being the most satisfying thing in your life. So be careful that your game plan is bigger than just a career choice or a job choice. You've heard a little bit of this mixed into the conversation so far. Beatrice has talked about it several times, right? Life is bigger than just your job. It might involve a spouse and kids and a whole bunch of other things that will absolutely change the game, and it's worth every bit of it. So just keep that in mind as you choose where you want to go and what you want to do. Allow for life changes like those to take the highest priority.
Thank you, Joe. Hey, folks, I think we're going to change the format a little bit. We'd like to hear some questions from you. We've asked a lot of particular, what I call them canned questions. They reacted good to it, but we want to hear from you. This is really for you. And I think you've shared some really positive information to do this.
Do you guys offer like internships as someone who probably has interest in the field to see how it actually is for their day-to-day life? It's not my major, but it sounds like something that
We started an internship program at our airport last summer, and we had a student from Auburn and a student from a local college in Texas. And neither one of them was on an airport track, but both really got a lot out of it. And the thing that I didn't know about when we first started the internship program is that a lot of local colleges will have summer internship housing, which I didn't know. So you don't have to worry about coming and finding an apartment for 2.5 months. And it really helps in getting people in.
Absolutely. Internships are a big part of what we do as a company. If you are interested, there's often 300 or 400 interns that come on every summer at Textron Aviation that are in all aspects of the business.
And we're just developing an internship and hope to launch it this summer.
Very good.
Hi, I'm interested in airport operations, but I'm struggling to find a lot of entry-level positions online. So what would you recommend for trying to find like jobs that are in airport operations that are at an entry level and don't require 10 years of experience?
Have you looked at like the AAAE newsletter?
I've heard of it.
There's something called Airport Report that comes out, I think, every other week, and it's got a listings of jobs in it. We try and get listed on Handshake and things like that, but it's really not very user friendly from an airport point of view. For us, it hasn't been anyway. But are you a senior or Hey, we've got jobs open right now. Get a card for me after.
You know, Julio, just because Julio's in operations up in New York, is it okay if I point him out? He's also on the BLB, but if you like airport operations, probably be somebody worth tapping him on the shoulder when we're done. Is that okay, Julio? Sorry if I put you on the spot.
I was wondering if there were any specific jobs, specifically on the business side of things, that are in a shortage right now, or that you're specifically looking for more so than others in any of your individual companies? Something that we should be looking for?
Yeah. What I think you're going to wind up finding is throughout at least the corporate jet side of the industry, there is a shortage. Trip logistics people, and that's just the coordinators. We have roles within our organization, flight service advisors, sales, trip owner services people. So I mean, it's just really hard to find people that want that track. A lot of it winds up being, well, two sides. Sorry, I'm not verbalizing this very well. There's two sides in our organization. There's one customer looking side, and they're the people working with, whether they're charter clients or whether they're with owners, to coordinate all the details associated with their trip or their aircraft. And then there's the flight services side, which are the people that execute once trips are booked and doing different things along those lines. That typically winds up having a little bit more of a technical aspect, but still on the business side of things. And we have a constant post out there looking for both those sets of people.
I had a question for Beatrice, actually. Hi, my name is Sophia. As an international student, I know that there's a lot of challenges.
Sophia, come on up here.
Yeah.
Microphone over here.
I know there's a lot of challenges as an international student, especially from Sweden. I was wondering what some of the advantages were, if you found something along the way. And additionally, I was wondering if, with the transfer of your major, if you found that as something difficult going back to Scandinavia and finding a way to ease in with your major, or if you stood out having a specialized major from Embry-Riddle.
Yeah, so good questions. So the first I did was that I got the OPT. I don't know if you, the optional practical training. So as an international student, when you complete an entire degree in a different country or in the US, you are allowed to do a year of OPT. What that means is basically your year to find a sponsor, to find someone who will sponsor your visa. When I was lucky enough that when I had that job in Chicago, they wanted to sponsor me, and they gave me an H-1B visa after my OPT had expired. There are different routes, and I know it's been getting much more difficult and complicated to get these visas today. So you kind of have to work with that company to guide you through. But we are coming from a very unique university, a specialized degree in the aeronautical science spectrum. So you have that kind of niche. So as long as you just kind of show that you're there and you want to stay, just, you know, work with a company and have them to support you. If you do it by yourself, it's going to be very difficult. You kind of need that company behind you to go through the visa process. I know it's not easy, and sometimes some of my international friends, they went abroad to different countries, they kind of built on their experience, and then they were able to come back to the US. So it kind of depends on how many years of experience that company requires, but if they really want you, they will help you out. And then I think you had one more question in there. How my degree translates. So that was totally fine. They definitely recognized it as a full degree, and as I could kind of explain to the employer as well what it was that I did. I had my business degree with a specialization of aviation and management, and that kind of gave me that niche as well, especially when I came into jet aviation. So they recognized it, and if you stay within aviation, everyone is going to know Embry-Riddle. And the network we have with Embry-Riddle today, it's quite amazing. Like everywhere you go and turn, you'll find Embry-Riddle alumni. So it has a very good brand. So I think that will help you a lot.
Great, thank you so much.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys for being here. My question is in regards to AI. How do you believe AI is impacting your industry? And do you believe as business students, it's imperative for us to understand a programming language to be able to use it towards the future?
We had a discussion about artificial intelligence and what it's doing in the industry right now, just earlier today. And I think the answer is there are some things about AI that are going to be very, very advantageous to helping us do analysis and helping us become safer in what we do. None of us felt like AI was a direct threat, although it definitely brings some new things that we're going to have to be careful with as we go forward, right? As AI gets into the operational aspects of an airplane, how are we going to certify that, right? There are some things about that that are going to be yet again more difficult and more expensive that will ultimately get borne out in the price of the airplane or the price of the ticket. So I don't think it's going to mean, super big change for the way people move about, but it's definitely going to impact us, and we need to learn how to use it very carefully and very completely, right? So we want to understand the threats and we want to understand the goodness. As far as being able to program in it, right, there's going to be some specialty areas where that is going to pay off big time.
And let me build a little on what Joe said. I believe that AI and the benefit that AI brings to corporate aviation is probably not the benefit that everybody thinks it's going to be. And this is part of evolving as an industry. For example, as AI has become more popular, the first thing everybody in our industry said is it's going to optimize schedules. We're going to be able to do fleet planning differently than we've done before. And that has not turned out to be the case. And the reason it hasn't turned out to be the case is, at least within our fleet, AI could never accommodate somebody changing their mind or changing when they want to leave, or maybe not take a trip at all. Therefore, an airplane's going to wind up being out of position if you try and daisy chain trips together. So AI is frequently thought of as solely optimization and taking variables or the decision making out of a particular business system. Where it is making a big difference, and we literally just deployed this on Saturday, part of our workflow within our organization is we have a team of salespeople that scrubs emails, some web boards, different places that people post the request for trips. We're trying to physically match up where our airplanes are with trips that may wind up making sense, and then issue quotes for those trips. This new AI in this particular situation will go and it will read our entire email inbox, and it's got enough intelligence. And I don't know the difference between machine learning and AI, and I think it might actually be machine learning. But my point is, it will scrub all of these sources that we are currently doing manually, and it will actually self-quote our fleet wherever it winds up being, if the trip winds up making sense, and then present all of those quotes to one of our salespeople, who can then make the decision if they want to send it on. Are there ways that we can compete better for it? So it takes a manual process of 3 people. That takes them all day to do, and does it in about 30 seconds. So that's a big deal.
We sometimes have started using it for schedule repair when things go wrong, and it does do a lot of data analysis in a short amount of time. It's not perfect, but it does compress the time to get the schedule rebuilt when some operational issue comes up. But I've said that's what I've noticed with it.
Okay, come on. Anybody else? We got a lot of questions out there. Any questions on the staircase?
I have one, has there been a point in your career from the start of your academics which really challenged you, or I don't want to use the term, but it was a sense of failure to you. How did you overcome that? How did you navigate your way through that?
I'll jump in there with an example, right? And that's one thing that I hope everybody gets a chance to experience is a point at which you feel like you didn't measure up, right? Because that negative reinforcement does a lot to either cause you to choose a different path or figure out how to go back and say, where didn't I do this well enough and get better at it? So in my particular example, I was doing one particular job and the guy that I worked for came around and said, I'm going to put somebody else in here and you're going to go over and do something completely different. Message clear. I got it 100%. And what that meant was I had to redouble my attention, my effort, my focus on the new job, not worry about what didn't go well in the last one, not blame everybody else but me, but to own it and refocus my attention and keep going. And, you know, be glad I still had a job, that kind of thing. So I think it was very beneficial.
Good question.
I did, at age 44, I enrolled in a master's program to get an MBA. And Finance 3 kicked me all over the place. I had no finance background when I started the program, by the way. And I was, I don't know, the third oldest person in the class. And from start to finish, I was just bouncing off the walls. But what I did was put more time in it than everybody else because I had to. At no point did I give up. And that's probably the most important part. But even after I got through the class, I still applied it in places that I really didn't have to, just out of curiosity. I still did my own personal finance projects on my company and its competitors, just out for my own curiosity. And I don't know, some number of months or years, however many later, I got really comfortable with it. And I can kick it around the room now.
Just remember, failure is not fatal. It's what you do with it.
Hey, folks, I think we should wrap it up. What I'd like to do is Lindsay, Beatrice, Kelly, Justine, Andy, Joe, we can't thank you enough. I think they've been great, don't you? Yeah.
I just want to say thank you for all of you who were able to be here. I know we had a class change in the middle and that created a little bit of disruption. But for those of you who stayed and asked questions and listened, I hope you found this beneficial. We have an amazing group of alumni. And Beatrice and Lindsay, thank you to both of you for responding when I reached out and saying, hey, will you be part of this? The ability to bring in people from all over, some who graduated many moons ago, as we were joking about, some who graduated very few moons ago. They're always willing to reach out and respond to you. Reach out to them through LinkedIn, ask them your questions, and honestly realize just how fortunate you are that we have an amazing leadership board and alumni base, and they all want to see you succeed. You are the legacy of this institution just as much as they are. So thank you, Lindsay, thank you, Beatrice, and thank you, entire board. 5 p.m. ice cream social, free career fair, get a head start, and also you can network with these people a little bit more. Have a great day. All right, she wants to grab a picture of you guys.